Howdy, listeners. This is your host, Random Nerd, on the Critical Thinking Nerd podcast. This episode will be different than my previous episodes. I will actually open the door to commentary on various news articles I come across. This isn't moving away from the main podcast itself, but to give you more content and to share more of what society dictates for your lives. Today's top story comes out of Norman, Oklahoma, where a pre-med student at the University of Oklahoma says she received a 0 on a reaction paper after expressing a biblical view on gender in a psychology class assignment. The student, Samantha Folnecki, told CBN News that the assignment asked for her personal opinion in reaction to an article about gender stereotypes and norms. She says she had earned perfect scores on every previous reaction paper in the same class, none of which required citations or empirical evidence. However, on this particular paper, Folnecki wrote from her Christian perspective and argued against aspects of gender ideology. According to her, the instructor gave the assignment a 0, writing in the comments that the paper lacked empirical evidence, contained quote-unquote offensive content, needed more empathy, and that personal ideology could not be used to defend an opinion. Folnecki pushed back, pointing out that the syllabus in past assignments had never required sources or evidence for these short opinion pieces. After she appealed through the psychology department head, the dean, and ultimately the university president's office, the University of Oklahoma informed her that the 0 grade would be removed and would not affect her final course grade. The university has not publicly commented on the incident beyond confirming to Folnecki that the score will not count. Let's dive into the details and the broader debate over viewpoint diversity in the classroom and how universities typically handle grading disputes when faith and controversial topics collide. To start, what is gender ideology? Gender ideology is a belief system that says your gender is whatever you feel it is inside your head, completely separate from your biological sex. It claims there's a spectrum of genders. Let's dig deeper. Is there a, quote, spectrum of genders, unquote? Short answer is no. Throughout recorded human history, only 2 sexes genders have been recognized as real, objective categories, male and female, rooted in reproductive biology. The idea of a broad subjective, quote, gender spectrum, unquote, is a very recent post-1990s academic and activist framework that originated in Western queer theory and postmodern philosophy, not from historical or cross-cultural observation. It has no precedent in the factual historical record as a widely recognized reality. So, historically, and only 2 genders recognized throughout history as objective categories. Everything else is rare exception, cultural rule, or modern ideological claim. Let's take this one step deeper. Queer theory. Queer theory is a late 1990s academic framework that declares, quote, all sexual and gender categories are artificial, oppressive power constructs that must be disrupted, subverted, and ultimately dismantled, unquote. Bottom line, queer theory isn't just an LGBT studies. It is an explicitly anti-normative project whose end game is the dissolution of all fixed sexual and gender categories, including, ironically, the stable gay, lesbian, trans identities that many activists now take for granted. That's why some older gay rights activists and radical feminists call it regressive or even dangerous. It doesn't want inclusion in this existing system. It wants to burn the system down and replace it with perpetual fluidity and subversion. To summarize, gender ideology is simply a theoretical idea with no factual scientific data to back up the idea, and unfortunately, it went mainstream into society very quickly. This article caught my eye as this topic circles back to my first podcast series of Transgender Agenda to Rewrite Biology. I will add the first episode in this episode description. Returning to the article, the professor criticized and even persecuted Christian-based paper with factual information sources because of personal feelings. This is a twofold issue. One issue is the feelings grade over a well-written paper for the assignment. On the second issue is a persecution of the Christian faith. Had the student not appealed the grade, the 0 grade would have remained on the paper against the student. At the core of it, censorship and the deliberate attempts of corrupt academia against meaningful education. Where do we go from here? Restoring the idea of meaningful education based on known and proven data, and the restoration of logical and critical thought, especially for college classes in psychology, as this article covers. While legality, some college professors have tenured positions that are legally protected from being removed. But my idea is even simpler. Overfill the classes with reason and logic. Philosophy, psychology, even sex-based training education. College is meant to bring critical thought to the students. I even challenge students to reestablish critical thought to college administrators. Current liberal and progressive public colleges are filled with indoctrination-style curriculum, even public grade schools. If feelings really dictated society, as we've seen across the US, many jobs would become extremely neglected and downright safety hazards. The second part is the persecution of Christian perspectives and the deliberate indoctrination of gender ideology. The Christian faith has always been persecuted against. In reference to the article, instead of a thoughtful feedback, the professor deliberately gave the paper and the student a 0 grade and demanded the student submit to gender ideology. Indoctrination into a perverse ideology and the censorship of faith-based opinion. There's nothing else to add. I hope this episode provoked critical thoughts. If you wish to share your own critical questions, please send to my email at criticalthinkingnerd@gmail.com for truth, transparency, and fairness. If you found this episode meaningful, please continue to listen to my next episode as I dive deeper and research further to share my knowledge with you. Thank you.